Hello everyone and welcome to our Sunday school video this week. Can you remember what we looked at last week? Who are we looking at? We're looking at Elijah, aren't we? And what have we seen about Elijah so far? Well, he's a prophet, God's messenger, and God provided for him when there was no rain so that no food could grow. God provided for him with the ravens. We saw that on week 1, didn't we? Last week we saw God providing for Elijah again, but who else did we see God providing for? The widow and her family. So the widow didn't have much flour left, but God made her jar of flour and jug of oil never run out. We saw God's power through that miracle and how he provided again for Elijah and also the widow. This week we're going to see more about God and how God uses Elijah and shows himself through Elijah. So we're in 1 Kings again and we're still in chapter 17 and we're verses 17 to 24 today. This is the widow's house. Here's the widow. Here's Elijah. And here is the widow's son. Now sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house grew very ill. And he became really, really ill in the fact that one day he stopped breathing and he died. The widow came running to Elijah and she said, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of the wrong I'd done and kill my son?" Elijah said to the woman, "Give me your son." So they went into the house and Elijah picked up the son and took him to the upper room where he'd been staying, and he put him on the bed. He cried out to the Lord, "My God, have you brought this tragedy on this widow I'm staying with by causing her son to die?" Then he stretched himself out onto the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, "My God, Lord, let this boy's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and took him downstairs to show his mother. Elijah said to the widow, "Look, your son is alive." Then the widow said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is true." So Elijah was staying at the widow's house, and the widow had let him stay in the upper room. But sadly, her little boy died. Now she must have felt very sad after having been provided for last week by God. Now this has happened to her son. She was very confused and very sad and thought it was because of what she'd done. She thought it was because of the wrong she'd done in her life. But Elijah said it was not. He didn't know why either, but he went up, and God, through Elijah, brought the son back to life. Again, we see God's power in bringing this little boy back to life. God's power of life over death. God's power over death. He raised the little boy to life. God heard Elijah's cry, didn't he? And he showed his power through Elijah. Elijah trusted God when he prayed to God to bring the boy's life back. He trusted God, and God heard. Elijah was very special. He was God's messenger, a prophet from God. And because this happened, the widow knew that he was a man of God. And she believed in God and trusted in God too. Now, today we should trust in God too, shouldn't we? And trust that He cares for us. God cared for the widow. God cared for her and brought her son back to life. God sees us and sees us in our suffering, and He cares for us. He's with us in it, and He helps us through it, and He helps us out of it. So God cares for us, and also we know because God has life over death. We know that through Jesus, don't we? God rose Jesus back to life, and one day all of God's friends, all of Jesus' friends, will be raised to life. Those that have already died before Jesus comes will be raised to life and brought to the new kingdom, God's new place where we will live with Him forever. Wow! And that story reminds us of that because He brought the boy back to life like He did with Jesus and like He will do one day with all those who have died before Jesus has come back. So, God cares for us. God cared for Elijah and the widow and her son, and God cares for us too. Remember that when things are hard. Remember that when you're struggling. Remember that God cares for you. Talk to Him. Ask Him to help you through whatever you're going through. And remember that one day, if you're His friend, you'll be with God forever one day. And that's amazing to remember too. Let me pray about that now. Dear God, thank you so much that you cared for the widow and for Elijah and for her and for the widow's son. Thank you that one day we will all be, all of us who are friends with you, will go to be with you forever. Please help us to trust you until that day. Help us to remember that you are there caring for us until that day. Amen. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you soon. Bye.